Hello, Praise Kids. Miss Yanni here, and today our Bible lesson is on God is all powerful. Yes, God is all powerful. So, did you know that way back in the day, there was a man named Elijah, and Elijah was a prophet. And a prophet is a person who hears what God says and then tells the people. So he listens for God, and whatever God says, he tells that to the people. So Elijah was a prophet, and there were actually other prophets, but they were prophets to a fake God. And this fake God was called Baal, right? So way back in the day, the people who Elijah was speaking to, they did not listen to God. They did not want to follow his commands, and they did not want to put him first. And those were the first two commandments that God gave. He said, put me first, right? And don't have any other gods before me, and don't bow down to any idols. And that's what these people were doing. They were bowing down to idols, which is a fake God, right? And they were putting other things before God. So, this is what happened. God was upset. But because God loved us so much, he wanted to show how powerful he actually was. So, Elijah told these other prophets, and there were 400 of them. There were over 400 of these prophets who were supposed to be speaking for this fake God. How can so many people talk for one God? I don't know. But Elijah told the prophets, this is what we're going to do. We are going to see which God is the most powerful. He said, we're going to do a sacrifice. We're each going to have our own sacrifices. Elijah said, I'm going to have a sacrifice, and you guys are going to have a sacrifice, and it's going to be the same. Okay? He said, we're going to take wood. And a sacrifice, if you don't know, back then, when somebody did something wrong, they actually had to kill an animal to say that they were sorry to God. So what they did was this was called an animal sacrifice. So they took their sacrifices, and they each had their own altars. There was two altars, right? So the one for Baal that the prophets made, and Elijah made one for God. The prophets were to go first. Elijah said, I want you to go first, and when you cry out to your God, he has to set the sacrifice on fire. Ooh, and that's saying something, because, it was already kind of hot, so because there was a drought, right? So they said, what we're going to do is you're not allowed to use any matches. You're not allowed to use any flintstones to make your own fire. You have to let your God do it by himself, right? So Elijah told them, okay, it's your turn. Go. Do whatever you have to do to make your God light your sacrifice on fire. So the people, the prophets, the 400 and some prophets, early in the morning, they started out. They were crying to their God. They were praying to their God. They were dancing and singing to their God. They threw themselves on the altar for their God. They did all kinds of crazy things. And from morning to evening, nothing happened. And Elisha said, well, maybe if you talk louder, sing louder, maybe your God will hear you. So they did. Louder, they cried and they screamed and they yelled and they prayed to their fake God. But nothing happened. Well, it was Elijah's turn. And Elijah, he said, what I'm going to do. So not only did he have the same one, he actually added 12 stones, one for each of the tribes of Israel. And also, he dug a big hole around the altar. And so what he did was he filled the trench with 4 huge things of water. Now, in that time, it was a drought. There was no water to be found. So he filled the things up with water. And some people might have thought that was a little wasteful because they didn't have that much water. But Elijah knew that his God was real, and that not only was he going to be able to set that whole thing on fire, but he could provide more water, food, whatever, because his God was all powerful, right? And so they drenched the whole sacrifice altar with water. And can you light water on fire? No, if the wood was wet, which it was, you can't light it on fire. So this was a real test to show if God was all powerful. So Elijah prayed to God, and in front of all these people, God lit the entire thing on fire. And I'm going to demonstrate like so. God lit that entire altar on fire. And he showed the people that day that he was the all-powerful God. Can you believe it? Jill, turn the light on. And God lit that whole thing on fire. And he showed those prophets, look, I am the one true, all-powerful God. Isn't that amazing? I think it's so awesome that he not only lit something on fire that was completely soaking wet, that proved that he is all-powerful. And so this is what I want you guys to remember this week. I want you guys to remember that we serve an all-powerful God. He is all-powerful. Just think about it, like we talked a couple of weeks back. He created not only us, not only animals, but he created our galaxy, our entire universe, and if there's such thing, our multiverse. He is greater than a superhero. And I love a superhero movie, but even a superhero only has one superpower. And a superhero needs help. So that's why they have the Justice League. You know, a lot of friends with a lot of different powers. They all fight for the same goal, but they all need help. So we know that God is even greater than all the superheroes put together. God is all powerful. And that is what I want you to remember this week. And not only that is he all powerful, but we can come to him. We don't have to be afraid of him. He loves us and he wants us to talk to him and have a relationship with him. And Jesus did that on the cross for us. So we don't have to do sacrifices anymore. Jesus was the ultimate sacrifice for us. And now we can just come to God and pray and tell him the things that are on our heart or the things that are bothering us or the things that we need. So I love you. And remember that God is all powerful.